So we're going to have two speakers next. Jennifer Kolar is a founding board member and president of Atlas Assistant Dogs, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to working with people with disabilities to train their dogs as service dogs. In her 8-year tenure at Atlas, she has played a pivotal role developing programs that cater to individuals with disabilities and their canine companions, while also spearheading the creation of professional training offerings for service dog trainers. Prior to her involvement with Atlas, Jennifer co-founded and nurtured a for-profit business specializing in owner-based service dog training. She has contributed to the establishment and management of a nonprofit training program where she oversaw puppy raisers, dog trainer education, kennel operations, and advanced task training for numerous service dogs in training simultaneously. Speaking alongside Jennifer is Molly Neher. Molly has worked at Atlas Service Dogs for 6 years as the Director of Operations and Programs. She works behind the scenes, developing and managing Atlas's programs and working hands-on with Atlas's clients to support them as they train their service dog. Thanks to her own seizure alert and response dog, Reed, Molly has seen firsthand the benefits and the empowerment that a service dog can bring. It is her strong belief that people do not thrive despite their disabilities, but rather with them. She is passionate about education, around disability in service dogs, and about helping more people gain independence with a service dog at their side. Please welcome Jennifer and Molly.
Hi, I'm Jennifer, and this is Molly. As Kevin mentioned, we're really excited to talk to you today about the benefits of a service dog for seizure disorders. We also have a table outside that we're happy to answer questions later on. So with that.
Hi everyone, I'm Molly. So we're, again, really excited to be here today and talk to you guys about what service dogs can do for folks with seizure disorders. So we're going to start off, just kind of give a quick little review of what a service dog is. We're going to go into specifics about what a service dog can do for people with epilepsy and seizure disorders, kind of go over some general things to think about, considerations for thinking about if a service dog is right for you, and then go over some of the options for getting or training a service dog, and then we'll have some time for questions. So first, a little bit about our organization, Atlas Assistance Dogs. So we're a nonprofit. Our mission is to fundamentally expand access to assistance dogs. We support people with disabilities to train and certify their own service dog using positive, ethical training methods. And at Atlas, we believe that anyone who could benefit from a qualified assistance dog should be able to have one. So we're a little different than some of the other service dog organizations out there. So unlike some of the other orgs that breed their own service dogs and raise them from puppies and then provide them to people, we work with people who already have their own dog and help them train their own dog as a service dog. We work with all dog breeds as long as their dog has the right temperament for service work. And we work with people of all ages, all backgrounds, and we're national, so we can support a wide range of locations. So a little review about what a service dog is. Under the Americans with Disabilities Act, the definition of what a service dog is pretty vague, which is a good thing and a bad thing because it opens access to a lot of people. So a service dog is a dog that's trained to perform at least one task that mitigates their handler's disability. And the task has to be directly related to that handler's disability. And the dog has to be well-behaved in public and potty trained. That's pretty much it in terms of what a service dog is under the law. There's no official certification, there's no official paperwork, no federal testing, anything like that. So a lot of organizations like ours have their own certification process, but that's really not an official requirement. And then under the ADA, we have service dog handlers have protections, so they have access to most public spaces that the general public has, with a few exceptions. So, for example, some religious institutions are exempt from ADA law. as well as some spaces in hospitals like burn units, ICUs, for example. The dog can be any breed, any size, can be trained by an organization, by a professional service dog trainer or dog trainer, or by the individual with the disability, what we call owner-trained model, which is what we do here at Atlas. And service dogs can help people with a really wide range of disabilities. So, traditionally we think of service dogs maybe for guide dogs, people with vision impairments, but obviously we're here today to talk about seizures, but there's so much more that they can do, and we're discovering more and more every day all the things that service dogs can do for people with physical disabilities, psychiatric disabilities, cognitive. There's really an incredible range of things that service dogs can do to help people. So I did want to tell you a little bit about myself and my story with Reed. So I have had Reed for a little over 10 years now. About 10 years ago, when I was a freshman in college, I got a brain injury and shortly after started having seizures. At the time, I was having anywhere from 10 to 15 seizures a day. We learned over the next few months that learned that my seizures were non-epileptic. So did want to give kind of that disclaimer that I don't have epilepsy, I have non-epileptic seizures. Because of that and kind of I was basically told, sorry, not much we can do for you medication-wise, treatment-wise, so I was kind of left on my own. I had to drop out of school, move back in with my parents. It was a really dark and scary time. So with some research, decided that a service dog would be the best option for me. But because there weren't a lot of organizations out there that provided service dogs for people in my situation, and if there would be really long wait lists, sometimes up to 5 years, and we'll talk a little bit more about kind of those options later on. I just couldn't, that timeline didn't seem feasible to me. I, again, was living back with my parents, couldn't cross the street by myself, so I needed something pretty quickly. So I decided to go down the route of getting my own dog and training my own service dog with the help of a trainer. So I was able to find Reed, who had some started training. He was 8 months old at the time. He had a foundation of training, and then I worked with a professional service dog trainer to really develop his skills for me. And about 6 weeks after I got him, he actually started alerting to my seizures. And we'll talk a little bit more in a minute about kind of what that means, alerting to seizures, responding to seizures. But thanks to him alerting to my seizures, he still to this day gives me 10-minute warning. I was able to go back to college, graduated, now work for Atlas, and kind of my life goal is to help other people thrive with a service dog, just like I've been able to do. A little bit about the difference between the seizure alert dog and the seizure response dog. A lot of folks, when they think about how a service dog can help people with epilepsy and seizure disorders, they very quickly jump to the dog alerting, and that's definitely a goal. There's a lot of ways that a dog can also help if they're not alerting, and we'll go into that. We're not 100% sure what the dog is alerting to. There's more evidence and research coming out that's showing that it is scent-based. Not entirely sure what that scent is, but there is some cool research coming out and more being done. And with a lot of medical conditions, whether it's migraines, POTS, all kinds of things, we're seeing more and more evidence of dogs being able to alert prior to the onset of episodes. So some really exciting research happening there. In my case with Reed, when he started alerting me, he started doing that all on his own. I didn't do any specific scent-based training. One day, kind of out of the blue, he started running in circles around me, and shortly after I dropped down, had a seizure. And he continued to do that. So because it's not appropriate for a service dog to be running in circles around you, we had to then shape that into the proper alert that I wanted, which is a nose bump. So he will alert me by booping me with his nose. And we have a video of this here. We got this by complete accident. This is an actual alert.
If they just stay there,
Yeah, audio's not on.
thinking about where they are anymore than just
So the person to pay attention to is Molly sitting in the chair versus the dog in the front.
aware that being on is what we want them. You're going to switch from resetting.
And what you can't hear right now is that I'm kind of interrupting the training session, saying, hey guys, sorry, Rita's alerting me. Where can I have a seizure? Yeah, I guess there's a couch over there.
Is that comfortable for you with all of us around?
I've had some work places.
Okay, okay.
Seizure will not be shown. So something to think about, and I realize you didn't hear the audio, but if you had heard the audio, you would have kind of heard that I was pretty uncomfortable. I had to kind of interrupt I was in a room with my colleagues in the middle of a training session and a workshop we were doing, and I had to interrupt everyone, and it was a pretty uncomfortable moment. And that's something that we don't really think about when, as part of the service dog training process and part of having a service dog. It's not just training the dog, it's also learning how to advocate for yourself in those moments. Okay, my dog's alerting me, what next? How do I speak up for myself? How do I interrupt in a room full of people and tell them what I need? Do I need to tell them, hey, don't worry, this is happening, please don't call 911? Or, hey, this is happening, please call this specific person, please bring me water, please bring me my medication, give me space. What are the next steps? And that's something that I definitely hadn't thought about beforehand. But it's all a really important step of having a service dog, kind of no matter what the medical condition is it's not just the dog training, it's training yourself and learning to advocate for yourself. Another aspect with the alert portion that I really hadn't thought of, and it was honestly the most difficult piece, and so I really want people to think about this before going down the route of a service dog, is when Reed started alerting me, which was the goal that I wanted from the start, I actually started getting really afraid of his alerts. He would start alerting me and I would run the other direction because all of a sudden it was this ticking time bomb. I would lock him out of the room. I would get angry at him. It was all his fault. And my trainer had to sit me down and say, like, Molly, you have to listen to your dog. You can't be doing this because if you don't listen to his alerts, he's going to stop alerting you. And not only is it just you have to listen to the alerts, but I was training the proper alert, right? So I had to go into training mode and yay, good boy, and give treats. So it was a really complex process and very emotional. And those are just some things to keep in mind, that it's, yes, you're getting this awesome dog that's going to be doing these great things for you, but it's an emotionally draining process. So let's talk about some of the things that a dog can do beyond alerting, because even if the dog never alerts to your seizures, there's still so much that they can do to help keep you safe during and after a seizure and really provide a lot of independence. So that can be staying with you throughout the seizure, keep moving you into a safe position, putting a pillow under your head, going to get help, whether that's a specific person or actually pressing a button that's in your home or a canine alert phone. sense of, he's staying with you after the seizure. One thing that's really beneficial for me specifically is I get very disoriented and kind of panicked after my seizures. So having Reed stay with me gives me a really good sense of grounding, and it makes me very aware of where I am, of who I am, and it keeps me in the moment. And if there are times when I'm having a seizure when he's not there, it's a lot harder to come out of the seizure. He also gets me moving a lot faster. He's trained to nudge my arms and start licking my arms, which just gets me moving a lot faster. If you get, dizzy, standing up, moving, if you have a larger dog, they can wear a mobility harness, help with balance and stability. And then they can go, retrieve food, retrieve medication, retrieve water. So let's look at some video examples. In this video, this was simulated. You'll see Reed kind of nudge me and then hopping on my lap. I was kind of simulating one of the types of seizures that I have where I just call it my space out seizures, where I just kind of go blank, dissociate a little bit, and him interacting with me gets me back in the present. Again, non-epileptic seizures, so I realize that for folks with epilepsy, this is not something that may work, but in my case, it does. So that interaction kind of brings me back into the present and prevents me from having a more tonic-clonic type seizure. Going to get help, you're not going to, the sound's not connected, so you won't hear it, but I'm actually telling him to go alert Gabe, who's my fiance, and he'll go and run and get him.
Kolar Gabe.
This is an example of one of our clients demoing deep pressure therapy, where the dog is going to lay on her, and so this can be really helpful for grounding, for pain, and for folks with a really wide range of conditions. And here you'll see an example of a dog retrieving a medicine bag.
Good girl. Thank you. That's a good girl. That's good.
And here we have an example of a dog helping their handler stabilize and get up off the ground. And I did want to make a point of saying that here, this is a very large dog wearing a mobility harness, and the handler is putting very little pressure on the dog. So whenever we're doing any type of bracing on a dog and putting any type of pressure on a dog, we have a lot of safety precautions in place, such as mobility harness, and where we're placing pressure on the dog, because we don't want to injure the dog in any way.
So I'm going to talk a little more generally kind of about things to think about with service dogs and options for getting one. So Molly gave a lot of good examples of things to think about where the training can be challenging. So some things to think about: lifestyle and finances. And this is really important, thinking about the type of dog. Are you somebody who's super active, who wants to be out jogging all day or hiking or running, that maybe, a more active dog is a good fit for you? Or are you somebody that, with your current health situation, you really aren't super active, you want to think about, is there somebody else in your household or family that can possibly help get your dog some more exercise? And maybe you're looking for a breed that's a little lower energy. Finances. Having a dog obviously is expensive. There's food, there's all the treats and toys and vet care. So something to think about. And working dogs tend to be out and about a lot more than a pet dog. So they're walking on pavement all day. They're out in a lot of different contexts and situations. So really making sure they have all the support they need. And as I mentioned, support, it's pretty hard to train a service dog all by yourself in a vacuum. It's really, especially depending on your condition, a lot of medical conditions kind of wax and wane depending on what type of epilepsy or seizure disorder you have. So having other people that can help you, that can be the person that can take them on a walk, that can give you a break, that can help with the training. And recognizing you can find that network possibly in your community. Maybe you're part of a church or a community group. You can post on Nextdoor. You can ask neighborhood kids. A lot of people are willing to help. It's just a matter of being comfortable to ask. And then the type of dog. So do you need a hypoallergenic dog? Do you need a dog that's bigger that for something like deep pressure therapy or mobility support? Maybe you need a smaller dog. For these scent alerts, there's no reason a very small dog can't be a seizure alert dog. But you want to think about, are they big enough if you want them to carry medication? But it could be that a small dog is a lot easier for you to manage. They're less expensive to feed. And so, just kind of thinking through who could be a good fit. Molly talked a lot about the effort and consistency. And this is very true with a medical alert dog, is making sure that you are really being consistent as you're building those responses that you want, as you're building those alerts. And recognizing how challenging personally that can be. I have to be excited and happy when I know I'm about to have a seizure. That's a really big mental challenge. The public visibility. This is something that we see with clients, and I experienced myself having an invisible disability, of sometimes it's really nice in that you're out there in the world and appear otherwise, quote unquote, societally normal. But because you have your service dog with you, people know, okay, there's something going on with this person. Maybe I'll give them a little more space. But the flip side of that can also be, oh, maybe I'll interact with them. I'll come up and say, can I pet your dog? What does your dog do? Or, oh, you don't appear to have anything wrong with you. Are you training that dog for somebody else? So I would definitely say service dogs are like a giant fluffy neon sign. And that can be good and bad, but it's just something to be aware of, and it can be really challenging if you have a lot of social anxiety. It can be really hard. Then what are you going to do to integrate them to school and work? Just like the previous speaker was talking about 504 plans, same thing with service dogs. If this is for your child, are they able to handle the dog on their own? Do they need a helper to handle the dog? Is it appropriate for the dog to be with them in all their classes? Maybe it's just some of their classes. And then navigating the world of other kids. Kids can be pretty mean. We have a client who, she's 16 now, she started with us at 13, who has Tourette syndrome. And her bringing her dog to school and navigating that at school, especially when she was a little younger, she had lots of kids teasing her, lots of kids barking at her, throwing food at her dog. And so just kind of recognizing the challenges around that, in addition to the benefits. But in her case, it was well worth it. She's able to stay in school versus constantly having to leave school. But thinking about, your workplace, your school, and recognizing a service dog isn't a cure-all. They are an adjunctive treatment. They're a living being, so they can fail at giving you your alert. So you're always wanting to be thinking of them as supportive therapies. So you're still responsible for yourself, but they are helping you. They're giving you more tools, causing you to need less energy to do the things you're otherwise doing. And as Molly described in her case, it's the difference of, hey, I can comfortably go somewhere and know that I'll get a 10-minute warning and I can get somewhere safe versus not having a warning. It's a pretty profound difference. But just recognizing they're not a cure-all. So let me talk about a few of the different common ways to get a service dog. So one is receiving an already trained dog. These are typically program dogs, as they're called, from a nonprofit. Depending sort of some of the pluses and minuses. The dog is already trained to some level. Organizations really vary in those standards. As Molly mentioned, under the ADA, there is no real standard for what a service dog is. There is no certification. There are organizations such as Assistance Dog International that set standards, but nobody is required to use them in our country. And so how the dog is trained, the support you get to have them transferred to you really varies. It may be free if you qualify, it may not. If they have that ADI recognition, it may make traveling internationally easier. It may open up, especially if you're a veteran, it opens up additional funding available to you. But the drawbacks, as Molly mentioned, you could have very long wait lists, and those could be moving targets. You could be told 1 year, okay, it's about 3 years out, and a year later, oh, sorry, we bumped you back. Some other people, were a higher priority to us. Now it's 5 years. You may have to meet very specific criteria. Most of the programs that provide dogs, there are 2 people that are in a very specific location, a specific age, with a very specific disability type. And you need to be able to travel to where they are for either days or weeks or potentially months, depending on the program. You still may have high cost, both in your travel cost to go to them, as well as in some you are paying for the dog. And the quality of ongoing support really varies. I've seen people that get program dogs that literally don't know how to teach the dog how to sit. They got 0 support in what the dog's training was, so they don't really have a lot of support in how do they modify that training, how do they change it as your own needs change. Other organizations provide phenomenal ongoing support. And it's common in these organizations that you don't necessarily own the dog. The organization maintains ownership, in theory, to help protect the dog, that they could take the dog back if you're not taking proper care of them. However, I have seen some of these organizations use that as a pawn, essentially, to manipulate their clients, to encourage, to have them do fundraising, to have them present, to make sure that they aren't saying anything public that is negative about the organization. There are others that also transfer ownership. But that's one option, and there are many great nonprofits, and for some people, training your own dog is really not an option. And so this is an important thing, that it's there, but unfortunately there are many more people that need dogs than these foundations can provide. The next would be, and this is the route Molly went, purchasing a trained or partially trained dog from either a breeder or a trainer or a service dog for-profit company, and then working with a trainer to complete your training. So same deal, you're getting a dog that has some level of training. It's hard to say how much. There have been, unfortunately, a lot of scams in this area and people especially that prey on adults who have kids with disabilities because the parents are desperate to get help for their child. And so you'll see cases where someone sells a dog for $20,000 that then ends up biting the child. Dog gets returned, recycled, sold to someone else, repeat it again. Or someone will spend $20,000 and get a 4-month-old puppy and be told, oh, here's your fully trained service dog. So buyer beware. There are also very qualified good trainers out there and breeders that have started programs out there, but they are very expensive. You easily could spend up to $50,000 getting a fully trained dog from a breeder. You may get additional ongoing training support, but you'll be paying for it. And kind of depending on where you live, current market value for service dog training is anywhere from $150 to $200 an hour. But you may have fewer criteria needed to qualify because you are paying for them. You don't necessarily have to fit into the organization that, the one narrow organization they support. But many trainers do specialize. Drawbacks, there still could be a long wait list. We're working with one of our clients right now who's retiring her dog earlier than she expected and working a successor dog, and she's working with a breeder who will train them up to 9 months. But that means waiting for the next litter of puppies and having them be trained and seeing are they the right fit, and if not, starting over again. So there's not necessarily just a dog hanging out waiting, with saying, oh, here, I have a started dog, come by me or come find me. Again, the cost can be pretty high. There's no guarantee they'll be a good match. You don't necessarily know when we assess puppies at 8 weeks. We're looking for red flags. We're looking for what are obvious signs that either they're not a good fit, and we're looking for things that tell us, oh, they have good potential. But we don't know how they're going to develop yet. And so you learn that over time raising the dog. And you also don't know, something could happen, something environmental could happen that would scare them. They could get hurt, something, they could get attacked by another dog. Things can happen over life and learning. So you never quite know how they're going to be. And typically if you're purchasing a dog like this, there isn't ongoing support unless you're paying for it. But this can be, another option that can work for people, especially if you can't start from a puppy, looking either at a rescue or looking, is there a breeder that will do a started dog program? A number of breeders will do that. Then finally, the owner training model, which is what we do. And so this is where you already have a dog, or you purchase or adopt a dog with the intent of training them as a service dog. And I'll talk about our program in a minute, but some of the benefits of this, you choose the dog, so they're whatever type of dog you want. You're building a bond with them from the start. You're really, because you two are training together, you're learning each other's language. And so when you see seasoned teams working together, there's much less formal cues of do explicitly this, do explicitly this. You're reading each other's mind to a large extent. They're anticipating what you need. And you really learn to become a trainer yourself. Many medical conditions have lots of different aspects. There's good days, there's bad days. Your needs change. And being able to teach your dog as your needs change is really important. Maybe you're going to have a surgery that you're having a hip replaced, and you need the dog to be able to go under the bed and get things, or retrieve things, or bring things that they didn't need to before. Maybe you need them to help with doors. So being able to have that skill is really valuable. It's typically less expensive. You may still be paying a trainer to support you, or you may be paying for online resources, but it's typically much less expensive than any of the other options. The drawbacks, there's no guarantee that dog is going to be a good candidate. Just like any, kind of the buying a dog from a breeder, you don't know how they will develop. We do our best. You do your best working with a good breeder or someone that helps you select a dog, and then you do your best to make sure they get all the proper socialization and training, but we really don't know yet how they're going to develop. It's a big learning curve for those who have never trained a dog before. Molly borrowed my Golden for about a month before she got Reed, because she'd never had a dog. And so it was just to give her an experience of a fully trained dog, of how to handle a dog. And it can be hard to find a qualified service dog trainer or consistent resources. The people that cut our hair have more regulations and licensing than dog trainers do. While there are many different credentials and certifications that we can earn, there is no requirement for that. And so anybody can say, poof, I'm a dog trainer. Poof, I'm a service dog trainer. And that can lead to very good results or very bad results. So some of the pluses and minuses there. So let me tell you a bit about our approach to this. So we're a nonprofit. The model that we have found is we work with people once their dog is at least 14 months of age. There's a lot of resources out there to get foundational pet dog training and to get foundational starting training at reasonably affordable prices. That's not a problem we need to solve. What there isn't support for is learning how to do task training, learning how to self-advocate, learning how to navigate all the different parts of society that you're going to be going around. And so we'll work with you once your dog is at least 14 months of age, has passed their canine good citizen test, which is just a baseline of just basic obedience. We do a temperament assessment to see how they are with people, with animals, in somewhat distracting environments, to make sure that the dog really is going to be happy in this. We don't want the dogs to just be kind of shut down and sucking it up as they go through life. We really want them to be happy and thriving. And then the person must be committed to using only positive training methods. This is really core and fundamental to everything that we do. We then work with you for a minimum of 9 months. Hands-on, that's where our volunteer trainers that we've trained are working with you, usually meeting every other week in person. Sometimes that's virtual support. We're training you how to teach your dog all the different disability tasks, everything you need for public access, a lot of kind of what Molly was talking about of self-advocating. How do you speak to the public? How do you work with your dog? What do you do? You've got this dog that's trained to do these things. Now what? How do you actually take advantage of that? We really try to build strong community support. So we have locally in the greater Seattle area, we actually have a good number of clients and trainers. So we have monthly meetups here, but we have virtual meetups for all of our clients. Twice a month they can call in. There's sort of virtual office hours. They can ask questions, just get support. And for this program, we only charge $900 for that 9 months of training and the initial certification. Obviously, this is way under what it costs us as an organization to do. And our goal is, and we have scholarships if that's too much, because for some people on fixed income, that's still a lot of money. And so we really want to make this as accessible and as affordable to as many people as possible. We do one other program that we have that is also helpful. And there are other programs similar to this. We have what we call Team Set in Motion. It's an online foundation program. We built this because we wanted to not have to say, when people would call us, we wanted to have an answer other than saying, I'm sorry, we can't help you. If their dog was too young, they lived somewhere we didn't serve. And so this is a program that people can take to just get support for their own pet dog, emotional support animal, a future therapy dog, or to get foundations for a future service dog. It's a lot of great foundation skills. It's completely online, uses a lot of fun gamified training and trick training, works a lot with cooperative care to make sure your dog is comfortable with handling. And then it gives you foundation skills that are building blocks to your disability tasks. And that one is only $59 for 3 months. But again, it's not a service dog program, but it is an option that's very affordable if you want the foundation training. So those are a couple things we provide as an organization that can help you in your service dog path. As Kevin said, at least Molly will come back up here, maybe we both will later on, and we'll be out here at the table. So any questions from anybody for us?
Could you talk a little bit about the Washington state laws around service dogs, like their access to different places, and if there's any other laws that people might want to know about?
Sure. So there's the American with Disabilities Act, which is a federal law. That governs the rights of individual handlers and their trained service dog. States then further control the access for in-training dogs. Washington laws just changed. So now in-training dogs have the same rights with a handler or a trainer in training. They didn't used to. Otherwise, most law, there's no other additional state-specific law. Now, housing is governed by the Fair Housing Act, so that's a little different. Workplace employment is covered by the Equal Opportunity Employment Act. Travel is covered by the Airline Carrier Act. So some of those things are a little different. But there are no other state-specific requirements. So you have full rights to take your service dog with you anywhere in public that a public individual can go, as long as it does not fundamentally change the nature of that business. And as Molly mentions, religious institutions and also educational institutions can have different policies. Or say you wanted to go into a commercial kitchen or a chemical lab. Things that would fundamentally change the nature of the business, those places can deny access to your dog.
I see from your phone number that it looks like you're in Oregon. Does insurance pay for any of this training? Or once you've gone through the training?
So if the organization is an Assistance Dog International certified organization and the person is a veteran, if that pair is there, then there is funding to cover the training, but only in that context. Otherwise, no, insurance does not cover service dogs. You can write off as a medical expense. You can, on your taxes, and you can work with an accountant on that, but you can write off the cost of the food and the vet care and the training expenses. You can write those off as medical expenses. But unfortunately, as of right now, there is no insurance provider that I am aware of that will cover service dogs in the US.
As for the Oregon number, it's because I live in Portland and I'm the one who answers our phones.
So I have a quick experience to share. I got to actually see a seizure dog in action. It's like 10 plus years ago. We used to hold an adult support group at Harborview Hospital, and there was a participant there with a dog, which we just assumed was their seizure dog, and the individual went into, I don't know if the dog was nudging them or her and letting her know a seizure about to happen. All we know is like they went into a tonic-clonic seizure, kind of fell off the chair, and of course I was like immediately in seizure first aid mode. I went over there to like try, and the dog was like, "Get out of the way, I've been trained on all this." So we were like kind of like in this awkward position of the dog getting involved, and I remember being like they're supporting their head, but I recall the dog, and it reminded me when you showed the picture of the dog kind of laying with you, that it was a golden retriever. I do remember that. But I believe he was on the back of, behind the person having the seizure. And I'm wondering if that was to prevent the dog or the person from rolling on their back, maybe. But that's my memory of the dog was laying on their back. But when the convulsing piece of it was over, he moved to sort of that comforting position that you showed. And then when this girl sort of awoke from her seizure, it was right there, and she was kind of like petting the dog who was right there. But it was fascinating and kind of sort of awesome to witness. At the same time, everything you said on the presentation was kind of true with what I was remembering. So anyways, that was my comment. Did you mention about the dog retiring? Because I do remember she came back, we asked her about it, and she's like, unfortunately, he's going to be retiring soon. And can you talk about that?
Yeah, well, both our dogs are retiring soon. I'm actually in the process of training a new puppy, so that's a reality. That's another reality of having a service dog. Eventually, they retire, and we've cried a lot about it over the past year. After both our dogs are 11, you can probably tell they're sleepy, they're a little slower. We have to, each dog is individual. There's not a set age at which dogs retire. Some organizations have, criteria of the dog must retire at 8, at 9. But we kind of look at how's the dog acting, how's the dog doing. Some dogs can keep working for a little longer. Some dogs have to retire a little younger. We really want to make sure the dog is happy and thriving and not stressed. In both of our cases where we've noticed that our dogs are a little slower and it's going to be time to retire soon. So personally, I've started, training a new puppy, and I have the help of a puppy raiser because puppies are too much for me personally, but yeah.
And so I think that's a thing unique with the owner training world, because you have this dog, and then when you realize it's time for another, that they're going to need to be retired, it's still a couple-year process to train a dog. And so you have the case of like Molly's not really doing much traveling right now, because if she isn't bringing Reed with her, then she really can't safely travel alone. And so you're recognizing your lifestyle might change, and also kind of until the next dog is ready, and making sure you're caring for the needs of the existing dog. My dog has made it very clear he really doesn't want me focusing my attention on another dog. And so while he's still fairly active, and I'm not going to start another dog. And so it's sort of looking at what's best for the dog, what's best for you. Our client who had to retire her dog young absolutely could not, she's legally blind and her dog helps her with walking. She absolutely could not care for 2 dogs. So she is rehoming to a safe family member, her current dog, while she starts on the next one. And so that's something as hard as that decision is, it's best for the dog, because her dog is getting really anxious and stressed in the settings that she's working. And so she's making a choice that's harder for herself, but better for her dog. And so I think that's just something to be aware of as as you go to the next dog. Can you handle having 2 dogs? What is it going to be for that dog? What is the right time? And it's something all of our original clients have either gone through or are going through. And so it's definitely a very individual, what's right for one person or the dog is going to vary.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I noticed both of your dogs have a sort of teal-colored vest on them. Can you speak to the different colors of vests that you might see on dogs, and what's the significance of that?
We just like teal. So our dogs have either navy blue or teal vests in our organization. Our clients get to choose. There have been attempts at different standardizations of colors. So like that, I think.
Orange for hearing alert.
I think there's been like certain attempts of like, oh, this is a hearing dog, or a guide dog, or this is an ESA, or I think green. I remember, like there are
for autism, I think.
So there have been certain attempts at that. There is no real standardization to that. And just like there's no requirement that your dog even have a vest. We're a candidate with Assistance Dog International, we are required to provide our clients vests. But they are not required to use them if they don't want to. It just makes your life a little easier as you're navigating public, because most people expect to see a vest on a service dog. So it just makes life a little easier. But I wouldn't trust the color to necessarily mean any particular thing.
Thank you.
And I do want to make sure people get their break. One more question, or otherwise come find us out at the table. There's going to be a break. We'll be back here later.
I had a pretty quick question. I have focally impaired seizures for 38 years, and now I'm having partial complex seizures. But the quick question is, my son is autistic, and sometimes his panic attacks could look like seizures. They're not. But would the dog know that he doesn't need to go to that and take care of that, or would he get confused? Because he's so young, it's just noises coming out of him. So would the dog get confused and think that kid's having a seizure?
Probably not, no. The dog will probably not be confused, and if they are, it's really easy to reinforce, hey, you're paying attention to this and not this. And as Molly mentioned, the science is still catching up, but most of the science is pointing to scent. We don't know what particular compounds yet. And so the scent of someone having a seizure versus the scent of a panic attack are going to be different things for the dogs. All right. Thank you.